Hi, welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial we're using Blender 2.8 to create this sci-fi animation loop. So we're going to create something similar to this that will just keep looping consistently when we run it on a loop inside of our software here, this video player. So let's create something like this, but let's aim to do something a little bit better. So we'll close this down, we'll open up Blender, and we'll go to General, click on the cube and delete it. Click on the light source and delete that as well. Let's pan around to the side, go to File, Save As, and I'm in the folder here. Let's call this Sci-Fi Loop -01. We'll click Save, and then we're going to press Shift A and insert a cylinder object. And inside the options here, we need to set the vertices to around. Let's set them, you can experiment with this, but let's set them to let's say 13. And then in the cap fill, we want to set it to nothing. So it's hollow inside basically, so you can see right through it. Now we want to rotate this so that it's laying down flat on the x-axis. So we want to rotate it really, let's see, on the y-axis by 90 degrees. So let's go to the rotation, click on the cylinder here, and then on the y rotation, let's set it to 90 degrees, and that makes it flat so we can see through it like this. And on the scale, we want to scale it up to 10 on the z-axis, 10 like this here. Okay, let's go to File, Save. Now we want to sort out the position of our camera first. So let's click on the camera, let's set all of the location, everything, basically set that all to 0. So 0 out everything here. So the camera is here. We need to go into wireframe so we can see it. And then we want to set the X location to -10. That puts the camera right on the edge of this cylinder, right at the back here. And we now want to, let's see, we want to rotate this camera. So we want to rotate it on the z-axis, we want to rotate it -90, so -90, and then on the y, well, let's see, on the x-axis now we want to rotate it 90 degrees. So that's facing forward, looking through this tunnel like this. We can see it's looking through the tunnel. So we press 0 to look at the camera view. We can see it's looking through this tunnel. Let's click on this cylinder, and let's go back to our let's use solid view for now, solid view. And we'll go to the modifier, add modifier, and we're going to add a let's say a wireframe for now, wireframe. And then we want to increase this to around, let's see, something like 0.22, something like this. It's going to be quite a thick wireframe like this. Let's go to File, Save As, and we'll save it as version 2. Save it. So just click the plus sign to add a 02 at the end, and then click Save. Okay, so we need to go and download a HDRI map. So let's do that next. We'll minimize this. Let's open up this folder. I've already got this folder in here called HDRI. I'm going to delete these files in here. We'll open up our web browser, and we'll go to HDRI Haven. And we'll download a few maps and we'll see what they look like. So let's go to Browser 200. I'm going to go to the nighttime and download the usual one, so night, and I'll download the Shanghai one here. So I'll put a link to this in the YouTube description. So I'll make a quick note here. Let's go to Notes. So I'll make a note of this and give you a link to it as well. I'll click 4K here. We'll download that and drag it into the HDRI folder here. And let's download one other one. Let's try let's see, we want something quite dark, so let's go for this one here, Fireplace. So I'll click on that one, and I'll make a link to that one as well in the YouTube description, and we'll download that one as well, and we'll drag and drop it in the same directory. We can close this down. Let's go back to Blender. Let's go to the shading, and we'll press 0 so we can see down this camera view. You don't really need to do that, but we'll do that anyway. We'll go to world settings, click on the background, delete it, and we'll do what we usually do. So let's just zoom in here a little bit. We'll press Shift A and insert a texture coordinate, Shift A and insert a texture environmental here, environmental texture, and then we need to insert a vector mapping here. Generated to vector here, so generated to vector, vector to vector, color to surface here. Click on render view here. So we're going to see the render view. Then go to open, we'll go to the folder and we'll click on this fireplace one for now. In fact, let's click on the Shanghai one for now and click open. So we'll open it, we can see the HDRI background. We'll go back to the layout. And what we want to do now is press Shift A and insert another cylinder. So we'll insert another cylinder here and we want to rotate it on the y-axis again. So let's just click on the second cylinder and we'll go to the object data and we'll rotate on the y-axis by 90. So it's basically the same as the previous one, but now we want to make it a bit bigger. So let's set the scale on the X to 1.5 and we'll set the scale on the Y to 1.5 and then we set the scale on the Z to 10. So it matches. Already it's like almost covering this cylinder, right? Like this, something like this. And we'll zoom in, we'll press actually 0 on our keyboard and we want to, let's see, we want to give that outward cylinder, let's see, what have we done here? Okay, right, we have to do that one more time. Okay, let me just do it one more time. So I've got the original cylinder here. Really, I wanted to give it less segments. So if you already done the cylinder, delete it, the second one that you created. Let's create one more. We'll press Shift A and insert another cylinder, but this time we want to reduce the amount of sides. We should have done that first, so we're going to set it to 11. So we'll set it to 11 sides, so it has less than the original one inside. And then we want to, again, rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis, increase it on the X by 1.5, on the Y by 1.5, and then on the Z by 10. So we want to have a bit of differentiation with the outside and the inside. You don't have to do that, but I kind of like to be a little bit different. So let's press 0. That takes us into the camera view. Let's click on the camera, click on the camera settings, and we'll set the focal length to 22. So we've got a wider angle basically now. And we can go into our render view. Let's go into our render view. Let's go into shader. Let's see, let's open. For some reason we lost our map. Let's click on Shanghai here. Open. Okay, I did Control Z and I undid that step there. So let's go to the layout. So we can see the HDRI map right in the background there. Now, let's sort out this inside cylinder first. So we need to apply some materials to that one. So let's click on the inside one. Let's go to the material. Let's click New Material. And let's name this cylinder Cylinder Inside. Let's call it Cylinder Inside. Let's call the material Cylinder Inside. So we've got some consistency here. Let's go to the color and we're going to set it to like a yellowy or orangey color. These colors you can choose entirely yourself. We'll set the metallic all the way up to the top, and then we'll set the specular all the way up to the top, and we're going to set the roughness to 0.7, 0.07, like this, 0.07, and then we will set the we'll turn on screen space refractions and we'll set it to multiply like this. Then we'll go to the what is this called, render settings here, and we'll turn on screen space reflections, we'll turn on refractions, we'll turn off half trace, and we'll set the precision all the way up to 1, and we'll set the max roughness all the way down to 0, and leave pretty much everything as it is for now. Now let's go back to, in fact in the render we want to set it to 120, and in the viewport we'll set it to 120 for now. Let's go to File, Save As, and set it as version 3, and we'll click Save. Then we will sort out the other cylinder material. So let's go to the second cylinder. Let's call this one Cylinder Outside. We'll copy that, so press Ctrl A to select it, Ctrl C to copy. We'll go to the material, click New Material, click on this name here, paste this name so it's consistent, and then we want to set this one to like a kind of a reddy sort of color like this. something like this. We want to set the roughness pretty low. We want to set this to around something like 0.8. Let's see, something like 0. Is that right? No, we want to set it to, where is it? 0.08. 0.08. Then pretty much everything else in here we can really leave alone for now. I think this is going to be okay. This should be okay. We'll play around with these settings maybe a little bit more, but for now we're going to leave them pretty much like this. Let's go to File, Save. Now let's just turn off our overlays for the second. We can see what's going on in here. And really, this inside cylinder, well, let's sort out the outside one a little bit. So let's see, we might want to bring the roughness down a little bit more. I think actually it's okay as it is for now. Let's leave it on 0.08. Now let's go to the shader, and inside the shader we're going to rotate around this map until we get some nice colors working through it. So something around here looks pretty good, where you've got blues and reds and all these sort of colors mixed together. Around, let's say around 33 degrees here on this particular map. If we click here and then click on the fireplace one and change the map, we'll get a different effect, right? And then we can rotate this one around and then we can see different colors based on that particular map. But for the one that we're using, the Shanghai one, we want to set it to 33 degrees, and then we'll open up that map. But depending on the map that you use, you want to rotate it around and try and find a nice set of colors. I mean, you can really like experiment with this, right, and get some crazy colors going on in here. But I want to try and get like a nice contrast between blue and red, something like this. It looks much better. Now, for now, let's press number 7. Number 7 takes us into the top view, right? So now we're looking at this from the top. Let's see. Let's go into the wireframe. Really, let's turn on our overlays. We need to turn our overlays on, yeah? Make sure you turn overlays on here. Now let's click on the first cylinder. This is the one that sits inside. Let's go to File, Save. Let's go to the modifier, and let's see quickly. We probably want to, let's see. So we've got our wireframe, and probably what we do, we're going to undo this wireframe for the minute. It's set to 0.22. Let's remove that wireframe for the second, and let's go to Modify and let's add in a subsurface first, and we'll set that to 1 and 1 here, like this, and then we'll go back and add the wireframe. So the wireframe sits underneath in the layer stack, and that's already set to 0.02. like it was before. Let's press 0 and see what that looks like, and then let's go back to our render view. So let's experiment with this. Let's see. So we can adjust this thickness here. And I want to set it to around something like this. Might look pretty good. What we can do is click on the camera and move the camera through the scene, right? So you can imagine what it's going to look like as you flow through it. It's going to look like this. So let's set this camera back to -10. So all we've done there is clicked on this first cylinder and removed the wireframe and put the wireframe in the second stack and put the subsurface in the first one. And make sure you set the view and the render to 1 here. Sometimes what happens is you set the view to 1, so inside the viewport you're seeing it as 1 surface subdivide, but in the render you see it as 2. So when you go and press F12 to render it, you see something completely different. You see this, and you're wondering, why do I see this here And why do I see it like this here? It's because the render and the view are set to different values. So make sure you set them both to 1. Then what we want to do is press number 7 again. So we go back into the top view. Let's go back into the wireframe and we'll go to the modifier. And this time we're going to set an array modifier. And the array modifier is going to be right at the bottom here. Let's set this value here on the X to 0. And then on the Z axis, we want to set it to 1. So set this to 1, then set this to 0, X 0, and then Z axis here, set to 1, and then set the count to 30, 30. And what that does is just replicate that first object 30 times going across, like that. Then we're going to click on the outside cylinder, go to add modifier, and then go to array, and we'll set that one to 0 here, and we'll set the Z axis to 1, and then we'll set the count to 30 as well. So basically what we've done is just taken our first object and replicated it 30 times to create this very long tunnel that we're looking down. So when we go to our render view, now we see it down a long tunnel, right? Nice and simple. So if we go back to the camera view, let's go to File, Save, and we want to set out a frame. So let's say that we're going to run this at, let's see, we probably want to run this at 60 frames a second. So let's set it to 60 frames a second first. So we probably want 6, 12, 18, 24, 240 frames, which will give us about 4 seconds animation. So let's set this to 240 here, end frame 240. So that means our video or our animation will play for 4 seconds, and we want to go between 2 of these objects within 4 seconds. So we set it at -10. So let's click on the camera, and right now it's set to -10. So let's go to press number 7. That will take us back into the top view, and we want to move from, this is where our camera is, right? So we click here, we can't really see it, we have to go in wireframe. We can see the camera here, and we want to move to not this point, but we want to move to this point here, right here where my mouse is. So we're going to cover the span of 2 of these objects. So let's hit the record button, move your mouse over the X location and press the letter I. That inserts a keyframe for the location. Then let's go all the way back to the end frame. So click here to go to the very last frame and press the letter I as well. Then let's click on the move tool and let's hold down the control key and drag all the way till we get to this point here. And that should really be 30 meters, right? Exactly 30 meters here. Right here. So if we go and press 0, then go back into our render view, then let's untick the record button and go to the first frame and click play. We can see now we're moving through this scene like this. It's going to rotate around, but we're going to have a slight problem on the very last frame. The last frame and the first frame are identical. They're exactly the same because we're moving exactly to the same point along these 2 objects. So we're ending in exactly the same point. Remember, we replicated them many times. So we don't want the last frame and the first frame to be exactly the same. So let's go back 1 frame. So we go to frame 239, 1 frame back, and we're going to copy this X location. So click on it, copy this value right here, and then go forward 1 frame or just go to the very last frame, 240. Then hit the record button, and then go back to the X location and paste in that value. So now this will always be 1 frame or 1 position behind the first frame. So when it loops back around, it's going to loop from this frame all the way back to the first frame, and then you won't get that camera sort of a pause, like a 1 frame pause in the camera view, in the animation sequence, if that makes sense. Let's try it. Play. So now it will just keep looping like this. Let's go to here and here. So we can see a slight difference between the first and this frame here. So that should be correct in theory. That should be right. Let's just middle mouse click and press 0. Sorry, press number 7. Let's go back to the top view and let's just see. So we start here, we'll span that whole object. This point here should be the same. It actually might be, yeah, it should be the same as what this point is here. So this should be correct. This should be one seamless loop now. In theory, it should be. Although it doesn't look like that, right? This is minus 10, so I think that's going to be okay. We'll see when we render it out. We'll check to make sure it's looping correctly, but it should be fine. That makes sense to me anyway. That should always be one frame or one frame behind this first frame here. So what we will do is go to the first frame here. We'll hit the record button and we're going to go into the shader, and we're going to press the letter I here on this section here. Press the letter I to insert a keyframe. Let's go back to the layout, go to the end frame. Let's go to this end frame, and we'll set this one to, let's go to the shader, we'll set it to the same value. Let's press letter I here. Then let's go to our middle frame, which will be 240, which will be 220, 120 should I say, 120 here. We'll go to the shading here, we'll press the letter I, and then we'll move this slightly, only a few degrees, don't move it too much. So we go back and play. Let's have a look, we've done something wrong here. Okay. Let's go back to the shader. 20.9. First frame. 30. So this should be 33.7. Let's copy this. 36.7 here. Let's go back to the layout. Let's go to here, and let's set that one to shader 30. So let's match them. Then on the frame 120, I'm going to go to the shader, press the letter I here. So that should insert a keyframe here. I see. We don't see a keyframe. So let's insert a keyframe, all channels here. Then go back to the shading, press the letter I here, and let's change this slightly. And let's see if that works. That should work now. Let's play this. That looks okay. So let's save this. And let's try and render this out and see what it looks like. So let's go to our output. Let's leave it on 60 frames a second. We'll change it to AVI JPEG. We'll click on the output folder. Let's go to my desktop. Let's go to here. We'll accept. We'll press Control and F12, and we'll render out these frames. And we'll see what the end video looks like to make sure it's all sequenced and everything's correct. This won't take too long to render out because it's nothing too complex. So we'll leave this rendering and see what it looks like once it's done. Okay, so Blender's finished rendering out all of the frames. We've got 240 frames here. We'll close this. Let's just save our work. File, save. And then in the folder, we should have this AVI file. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to open it with VLC Media Player. And then we can see this looping here. So the loop is pretty good. It's not too bad. I think it can be improved, but I think for a first attempt, I think it isn't too bad. I'm going to be making more tutorials like this showing looping. I'm going to try and improve the loop and make it more seamless, but I think there's a few little issues in here. Try and experiment with it, see if you can get it to work a little bit better. I'm going to be doing more sort of loop tutorials like this as well, so hopefully we can get it to work a little bit better. But overall, it isn't too bad. We can see it looping in here, and it's just a continuous video looping. So in VLC you can download and you can loop it. If you try and loop it in Windows Media Player or Windows like default player, let's open it with I think it's called Filming TV in Windows, then the loop isn't so clear. It does sort of jerk when it pauses when it loops back around. So if you open it in Windows, you're going to expect to see that, and the loop won't be so seamless. It will pause at the end for just a few seconds, like a millisecond or something, but you'll notice it in the video. But when you open it in VLC, so make sure you download VLC Player, VLC Media Player, just Google search that, and you'll see the loop a bit more clean. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'll be making some more like this. I think we'll experiment and make some more tutorials doing looping sequences. That's the end of this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you in the next DCP web tutorial.